So I just did not want to. Yeah, you're right. No notebook work has been assigned so far as that lesson is concerned. I'll just give that. Please just do wait. Okay. Please just do wait. Right? The point clear, right? Still having any
Yes, sir.
concern?
No,
No,
sir.
sir.
Right. Let's give it a try then. So we have a chapter called the address. Now, yeah, it got ready. See, my system has become dead slow. When I'm just trying to open up the file, it's taking huge amount of time, seriously, because it is loaded with many files and documents. That is the reason why I'm just struggling with this one. So I think it's almost ready. Yeah. Right, just give me a moment. It's still, yeah. So please just acknowledge once you're able to see the PPT. Still pouring in. Now, in the meantime, I request each and everybody to leave their names along with the section in the chat box. Your name and then the section, either Amartya or Chanakya. Please just leave that in the chat box, everybody. In the meantime, it will be presented. Yeah, Sanjay Sutar, class 11, Amartya, like that. So, Naman Kankaria, like that. Please just do that and kindly acknowledge if you are able to see that.
Sir, we are able to see your presentation.
Yes,
thank
sir.
you. Right. Now, please just finish off the work. Right. Yeah. So, are you all done with the names? Shall we start this then?
Yes, sir.
Right, let's see. See, this is the second chapter from the supplementary reader. The first chapter was The Summer of the Beautiful White Horse by William Saroyan. We already finished it. This is the second chapter from supplementary reader. The title of the lesson or story is The Address. It's by Marga Minko. This is her real photo when she was young, when she got older. See this Marga Minko. Can you see her photograph?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, she was basically a Dutch journalist and writer. Her real surname was Menko, not Minko. Menko, M-E-N-C-O, Menko. But an official accidentally switched the first vowel. And so she just happened to have the surname Minko, and she got popularity with that name only. Actually, Menko, but accidentally an official switched the first vowel, and so it became Minko. She is actually a Dutch journalist and a writer. See, this particular story has a very, very important part in that writer's life. You know why? It is a touching account of the writer who went in search of her mother's belongings after the Second World War in Holland. So this is the reason why this particular story is an important part of her life, discusses an important part of her life. That means it's autobiographical. This story is an autobiographical one. That means it's not a story written, but an autobiographical one. It's her own story. It is really a heart-touching description of the author who went in search of her mother's belongings, their dresses, the cutlery that she has used, I mean, kitchenware, etc., all that, So whatever her mother has used when she was alive, she wanted to have them back. So she went to a house where they used to live. It's because of the Second World War effect, they had to leave that house and flee to a different part of the country. During the Second World War, if you remember this, what is the 4th chapter in class 10? Can you remember? 4th chapter in class 10.
Diary of a Little Girl.
Yes, The Diary of a Young Girl by Anna Frank. When did she write the diary? I hope everybody remembers that. But when did she write that diary? Do you know when she wrote that?
When she was first means 6 to 8 years.
Please come again. It was not clear.
The World War, during World War.
World War II.
Well, during World War II. That's great. During World War II. Now, what was the scene? What was the old diary talking about, in fact? The insecurities, the fears, the emotions, the untold miseries, the untold sufferings, all that were faced by a community or a religion called Jews. She was also a Jew. She was a Jewish girl. When she was 13, they went in hiding. They went into hiding. They just took shelter in a secret annex, secret room in her father's office. Years in that cramped, dark, room, 2 years. Just imagine. Their hideout was revealed by somebody and they were dragged to the concentration camps, which you remember. Actually, during these 2 years, she wrote the emotions, the experiences, and her expectations and wishes of the people with a specific reference to Jews at that time of World War II, where the Nazi army was very, very, very cruel to the Jews, not only in Germany, but also in Netherlands, Austria, etc. They were all grabbed and put at one place and put to untold miseries and sufferings. And they were least bothered about their lives. So they were treated as slaves. They were treated cheaper than animals, as per the instructions received from Adolf Hitler. Adolf Hitler, their head, this handsome 7-foot guy. No, he's just 3 feet or 3.5 feet. Okay, I'm just kidding. So this guy put, you must have even heard when that lesson was discussed or as a part of social studies, there was a Holocaust where,
Yes.
yeah, many people, thousands and thousands of Jews were hanged, massacred, beheaded. There was a Holocaust. Look at the statistics. So they were put to, kill all the people he judged racially inferior. Not only Jews, slaves, gypsies, and those who were mentally ill, thinking that they were of no use to him. So that he murdered thousands and thousands of Jews. It's just because of that fear, even the world's greatest genius ever born, Albert Einstein, who was also a Jew, had to leave the country and take shelter in America. Of course, America gave him citizenship. That is a different thing. And he served in Princeton University. And that's a different thing that we don't want. But because of the fear of Adolf Hitler, everybody got gripped in fear. Every Jew. Either they had to commit suicide or went into hiding in order to escape from this torture, ill treatment, all that. So one among the people was Marga Minko as well. The writer of this, that Dutch journalist and writer. She herself faced that heat, being a Jew. And so she narrated her experience in a very, very beautiful way in this short story or lesson, The Address. Are we clear with the background?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
Now, please just understand that this is something very important and very much required, because the impact of the war was very huge, psychologically and physically, on each and everybody, especially on Jews. I told you it was not Jews alone who were suffering. There were the other communities like slaves, gypsies, and those who were mentally ill. They were ill-treated. They were put in concentration camps where they were not given proper food. They were put to untold tortures, miseries, sufferings, and they were treated even cheaper than animals. So, and moreover, there were contagious diseases at that time. Typhus, you must have heard, with which Anne Frank also died. And at that time also, he paid no attention to the lives of those guys who were put in those concentration camps, those Jews who were all put in those concentration camps and struggling for life. And being an infectious disease, that typhus, who took the life of that talented 15-year-old girl, young girl, Anne Frank, also took many lives. But neither Adolf Hitler nor his army paid no attention to those lives. So that was the pathetic situation. So their lives were at stake, and everybody had to flee for their life to some or other part of the country or the world. And this is one such human being who had to flee along with the family. And then she just returned to her house where she used to live along with the family after the Second World War, unfortunately, where she lost her mother as well, in order to get her mother's belongings even after her death. So this gives us a heart-touching account of that girl, that is Margot Minko, when she went in search of her mother's belongings after the Second World War in Holland. I hope the background is clear to everybody.
Yes, sir.
Now,
Yes, sir.
let's have a word about the characters. See, it has actually three characters, main characters. Number one, the daughter, who is none other than Margot Minko. She is the narrator only. She returned to Holland to go to the address where her mother's precious belongings were kept. I mean, the house. Okay. See, as normal, she had returned after the Second World War in Holland. She just went back and she wanted to see all the possessions that were, of course, the only bond between her mother and herself. I mean, between her family and herself, because she lost everybody during the Second World War in Holland. Once the normalcy restored, she went back and tried to just see and have those precious things. This is the first character. Next, second character, Mrs. Yes, only the letter yes. Okay. Let me just start presenting the old screen, please, so that I can shuffle in between. Just give me a moment. Let me just show you the regional lesson only. Okay. Right. Now let me just start presenting the old screen so that I can, shuffle on. Yeah. Kindly acknowledge it once you're able to see the laptop screen. This is a simple story, don't worry, but it needs a clear background, please. Otherwise, you can't really appreciate the beautiful lesson, the beautiful narration. Okay. Well, can you see the laptop screen?
Yes, sir, it's visible.
Yes,
Yes, sir.
Right. Okay. Now, thank you. Please just look at this original chapter. This is the chapter we are talking about. And there is a second character, Mrs. Yes. Okay. Like you see here, Mrs. Yes. Only yes. The letter, the alphabet. Yes. That's it. See, she is the narrator's mother. That is Margot Minko's mother. In her story, Margot Minko's mother has been called Mrs. Yes. That's it. She was a very simpleton who could not see the manipulating and fraudulent mindset or nature of the other character, that is Mrs. Durling. The mother, Mrs. Yes, is the mother of Margot Minko. See, in the story, Margot Minko did not reveal the real name of her mother. Instead, she just simply used Yes, Mrs. Yes. That's it. And she was a very simpleton. That means kind lady who believed or trusted others very easily, and who was not able to understand the fraudulent nature of the others. So this is the second character. And Margot Minko, who went in search of the belongings of her mother, or the belongings, of course, those belongings are the belongings of Mrs. S only. Okay. She trusted another lady called Mrs. Durling, the third character, very much, and allured her, that Mrs. Durling was allured by Mrs. Yes, the mother of the narrator, to keep all her precious belongings during that tough time when they were about to leave their house to somewhere else in order to save their lives themselves. So she just allowed Mrs. Durling, the third character, to keep all the precious things of Mrs. Yes while she was leaving the house. Now, Mrs. Durling, actually, this was an acquaintance. That means not completely a friend, a known person to Mrs. Yes. But after a long gap, when the daughter of Mrs. Yes, her acquaintance, appeared in front of the house where they used to live, Mrs. Durling showed her cunning personality, and she denied to give back Mrs. Yes' belongings. She was the most reluctant to recognize even the daughter of Mrs. Yes, and did not allow even to enter the house. So this is a very fraudulent and cunning character, Mrs. Durling, who was an acquaintance to Margot Minko's mother, Mrs. Yes, and who allowed Mrs. Durling to keep all her precious belongings when she was forced to leave the house, for saving their lives. I hope the characters are also clear.
Yes, sir.
Let's move ahead with the story. So let's just see. See here, precious. Yeah, these are all, in fact, the heartbreaking sights. Just look at this. Humans only, like animals. Just look at them. The picture is unclear. Humans only. They were killed and dumped. They dug a hole in the earth, and after killing them, they were just thrown. Not even an animal was treated like this. Much, much cheaper. So now you can imagine how pathetic their situations were, and they were used to be treated cheaper than animals. That was a very, very pathetic situation. Now see, let's just look at the story. Please just pay attention, everybody. See the narrator. Who is the narrator?
Margot Minko.
Margot Minko.
The writer, the Dutch journalist and, of course, writer. She is the narrator of this story, and it is autobiographical. Her own life is described here. When the narrator knocked at the door of a house, let me just present this one so that it would be nice for you guys. Okay. She just knocked at the door of a house, but the door was opened only a little, not completely. We are into the story, please. Remain attentive. Stay focused. The narrator knocked at the door of a house. It's where the lesson starts. But the door was opened only a little, not completely open. She asked the owner if she knew her. I mean, the one who opened the door. The narrator told her that she was Mrs. Yes's daughter. But the owner of that house, Mrs. Durling, denied knowing her. Mrs. Durling's face was also not showing any signs of recognition. And she simply kept staring at the narrator without speaking any word. So the narrator thought that perhaps she was mistaken and had wrong bell. I mean, she went to a wrong house. Then the narrator got a glimpse of her mother's green knitted cardigan. I mean, a kind of dress. Green knitted cardigan. Sorry. This one, I'm talking about green knitted cardigan. See, cardigan means cardigan. See, it's a kind of dress, please. It's a kind of dress that you see here. A kind of sweater-like dress. Can you see them? The pictures?
Yes, sir.
Yeah, it's a kind of sweater-like, piece of cloth, which is worn on the regular dress in order to warm themselves. See, this was noticed by the narrator after being denied who she was. And that was green in color, and that was knitted by her own mother and used to wear that. Now, that was noticed by her. Who? Marga Minko, the narrator. She noticed that green knitted cardigan. And so, that was worn by Mrs. Durling, actually. This confirmed to her that she had reached the correct address, not the wrong address. But Mrs. Durling excused herself by saying that she could not talk to the girl that day and she should come again later. See, look at that attitude. When she realized that it was the right address and that was the right lady to whom she was talking, she denied. She excused herself by saying that she could not talk to that girl that day and asked her to come again. And then shamelessly closed the door. Are we clear so far?
Yes, sir.
Can I have the acknowledgement from the other guys as well? Not one.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Yes, yes, sir.
Yes,
Thanks for following it and being alert. Let's move ahead.
yes, sir.
Right. Thank you. See, the narrator stood there for some time on the steps, even after the door was closed. Someone actually was watching her from the bay window. So that means the window. Okay. The girl presumed that someone other than Mrs. Durling must be watching her and must have asked why the narrator came there, because she was there and could sense that kind of conversation happened between somebody else and the one who opened the door. So she presumed that someone other than Mrs. Durling must be watching her and must have definitely asked why the narrator, that is she, came there. And after this refusal, the narrator had to walk back to the station, the railway station, to leave the city, thinking about her mother and the time spent with her, the incidents where They shared love, emotions, etc. Her mother had given this lady, Mrs. Durling, address years ago when she was alive. And it had been in the first half of the war. The narrator's mother told her about Mrs. Durling as an old acquaintance and in whom she believed. So that she remembered. Who? The narrator. In the first half of the war, it had been a tougher time for them. And so, how she just got acquainted with this Mrs. Durling, and she used to say all that to the narrator when the narrator's mother was alive. Okay? Now she was thinking about all that. She also informed the narrator that every time when Mrs. Durling used to come to their house, Mrs. Durling used to take something home with her. It can be a spoon, it can be a food plate, it can be something else. The reason Mrs. Durling gave her for actions, for her actions was that she wanted to save all the good things, as the narrator's mother was supposed to move out of the house at one point of the time to save their lives. See, now please understand, when she started walking back to the station, she thought of her mother and what she told her about this Mrs. Durling and how she was and how this Mrs. Durling, had friends with had friendship with this narrator's mother, all that she was thinking. Now she remembered what she was told by her mother about this Mrs. Durling. Mrs. Durling was a kind of lady who used to come to the house of Mrs. Yes, and she used to take some or other thing every day. And upon being asked, she used to say that it was for their own good only. She claimed that she was saving all the good things that they had. And so she was carrying home all those good things to preserve them there. So all this was remembered by Marga Minko, the writer, the narrator. Are we clear with this? Imagination, thinking, flashback, all that?
Yes, sir.
So when she was asked by, actually she remembered further as well, further flashback as well. When she was asked by, Mrs. Yes, the mother of the narrator was asked by, the narrator herself. She simply said that, okay, yeah, it was for our own good. It is being done. And she also confirmed that whatever Mrs. Durling was doing to them was really a nice thing to do. In fact, she said that she was carrying such a heavy luggage every time she visited, as it was really risky during that war time for them. Well, thinking like that, this reveals the mindset, the objectives of that Mrs. Durling, who was cleverly cunning. So thinking like that, she arrived at the station without having paid much attention to the things on the way, because it was the place where she used to live as a child. It was the place she used to wander as a child. But she paid no attention to any of the streets, houses, shops on the way. She just lost in this imagination and thinking about this flashback. She was walking in a familiar places again and again for the first time after the war. But she did not want to upset herself with the sight of those streets, shops, houses, because they were all full of memories from a previous time. They will definitely revive the feeling of nostalgia. So, which she did not want. And so she did not pay much attention to all those shops, streets, all those. She simply went to the station. And in the train, she remembered the first time when she had seen Mrs. Durling. it was actually the morning after a day her mother had told her about Mrs. Durling. It was the morning after a day her mother had told about this lady. She was at that time wearing a brown coat and a shapeless hat. This shows that she was not so very well, and she was not so very actually, well-off lady. Well-off lady means rich lady. Okay. So she remembered when she saw her for the first time. Then she remembered it was actually a day after her mother had told her about this lady. Okay. So on that day, when she saw her first, she was wearing a brown coat and a shapeless hat. The narrator, that is Marga Minko, asked from her mother if she lived far away, because she was carrying a heavy suitcase. Yeah. Whenever she came there, she used to carry a suitcase, and in that suitcase or a bag, she used to carry many things from her house, and that's how she used to manage. So, being a very young girl, out of curiosity, she asked her mother, Mrs. Yes, if this Mrs. Durling was living far away from their house, because she was carrying a very heavy suitcase, But her mother actually told her that Mrs. Durling lived at number 46, Marconi Street. Where was she living? Number 46, Marconi Street. Not too far away from this. Very near. Well, this is how she just remembered when she saw when she saw Mrs. Durling for the first time. And then she remembered the address, but waited a long time to go there. The address of their house revealed by her mother. But she had to wait a long time because the war was at peak and everybody used to get scared. There was a great deal of insecurity, especially for Jews. So after remembering when she saw this Mrs. Durling and what happened on that day, and she also remembered that her mother revealed the address exactly, the address of the house to which she had to go to pick up the things. Initially, after the war was over, she was not interested. Please understand that this is something very important. Initially, she thought that all those things that were there in their address revealed to her by her mother, she was not interested. And she knew that they were all with Mrs. Durling. In fact, Marga Minko was afraid to see all those things that belonged to her dead mother, because she did not want to see their belongings lying there in Mrs. Durling's house in boxes and cupboards, because she feared that all those nostalgic feelings will be revived and will make her cry a lot, because they all make her remember her mother, dead mother. And moreover, those items were seen in boxes and cupboards in a very pathetic condition, giving no importance, having no attachment. They were lying there in the most pathetic condition. So when she was able to see those things, spoons, plates, dresses, etc., all that, in that pathetic situation, with which actually they shared a good bond, she was not able to bear that. She was scared that things might make her feel too nostalgic. But gradually, after just looking at all those in that pathetic condition, when she just opened it, so she just felt fearful about it and then wanted to leave those feelings. Well, after just leaving her hometown where she is now living, she started, shedding all those thoughts and, started living her own life and tried to normal herself. And one day, again, those thoughts invaded her, and she became curious to know about all those things that were lying there with Mrs. Durling's house, in Mrs. Durling's house. So the narrator decides to visit the house once again, because the first reason, for XYZ reasons, and the reasons you know, right? She did not have any fruitful result. So she decided to go there the second time. She could not resist. She could not completely put those thoughts away. This time, when she visited the house, a girl of about 14 or 15 opened the door, because the mother was not at home at that time. And the narrator asked that young girl about Mrs. Durling. Then the narrator, that young girl told the narrator that Mrs. Durling was not at home. She went outside. She had gone outside. Then she followed the girl along the passage. They entered the house. She noticed an old-fashioned iron candle holder like this, like you see some of the pictures that are seen here. She noticed a few things like this. Some of the things, old-fashioned iron candle holder like this, not exactly like this, something like this, iron one, which they never used and in rustic condition. And they went into the living room later on. The narrator was horrified there, because she found herself in the midst of their own belongings, the things used by them, the things with which they shared a good bond. But they oppressed her, as they were kept in a strange surroundings, and that too in a pathetic condition, very pathetic condition. And she felt hurt to see her family's belongings, very precious ones, not in terms of money, please, but in terms of bond. They were precious. They were lying in a very tasteless way. And that too, ugly furniture with a muggy smell. See, those were the exact words used by her. Ugly furniture with muggy smell. The tablecloth, the silver kitchenware, spoons, forks, food plates, and even even they were put, in that pathetic condition, they were still showing some life. And the apple that was seen on the tin plate belonged to her own family. She could just remember that one. And so, she was just keenly observing that girl, and the belongings, all that. See, this girl who allowed her to enter the house and accompanied her to all the rooms to show all the house, had a broad back similar to that of Mrs. Durling, because she was the daughter of Mrs. Durling. And the girl at that time was placing some teacups for tea to be served, because she was a guest, and that girl of 15 wanted to serve some tea for the guest. At that time, she noticed how she was. Just like Mrs. Durling had a broad back, she too had broad back. And she observed, the narrator observed, the teacups that she was getting ready, that were being ready for serving the tea, to be theirs only. She was pouring a tea from a white teapot, which was, of course, so all that, which was, of course, theirs only. That white teapot, that had a gold border on the lid. And then she describes some of the things. Why I'm just detailedly explaining all this? I doubted if some of you, are simply skipping the lessons. So I thought of, covering a detailed explanation, which is here. So I'm just trying to cover the detailed explanation. Even if you happen to not to cover this one, I hope you can be, completely confident to take on most of the questions. But I did not mean that you should skip it. You must go through that. So at times I might sound a little boring, but please understand that my intention is not to get you bored, but to make you understand each and every detail of the lesson, so that you can be well informed about the things and you can best appreciate when you go through the lesson on your own, and can confidently attempt any of the questions. So this will also be shared with you after the class gets over. I mean, after 1:30, I have one more class. So after 1:30, I'll share this file with you, the detailed explanation, which you must have to go through completely today and come up with your concerns tomorrow. Okay. So I might sound a little boring at times. So let me come back to this one, please. Okay. So she noticed that the white teapot with the golden bordered golden bordered lid with which she was just pouring the tea into the cups was noticed to be hers only. And the tin plate on which apples were kept, hers only. And the iron, old-fashioned iron candle holder was hers only. And lot many things to be them only. I mean, to be theirs only. She just, observed all that. And the antique plates, silver cutlery, that means, crockery, not cutlery, crockery, that, kitchenware, all that to be theirs only. Well, the narrator indirectly hinted to the girl that they missed these things, which are either missing from their original place or have been loaned to somebody. In that way, she just started talking about it. She remembered the time when her mother was alive and the narrator was at home, either bored or ill. Please understand this one. And her mother asked her to polish the silver cutlery. She remembered all those incidents. When she was at home, she used to be asked by her mother to, wash or polish the silver cutlery. That spoons, forks, all that. And she was surprised to hear that the cutlery was, that they were using was made of silver. This was surprised. This gave a surprise to that young girl of 14 years old. Because she did not know that they were made of silver, something costlier. And even Mrs. Durling's daughter, could not actually expect that. But she was very surprised to hear that they were using something costlier. That is silver cutlery for everyday eating. This is something even more surprising. Not for occasions, but for everyday eating. So that really surprised the, writer. Now we are at the end of the story, please. So after having this kind of emotions, feelings, flashbacks, all that, the narrator strongly decided at one point of time that she could not stay there anymore. What might be the reason, do you think, guys? What might be the reason, do you think? Why she must have thought that she could not stay there any longer at one point of time? Why? Any guesses?
So, they were her mother's memory, and she was also aware that Mrs. Dudley was not a person who would easily return it.
Nice, I agree to an extent. There is something beyond that. One more thing. Yes, it was pretty clear from the first visit itself that Mrs. Durling was not a kind of person who could return all those. She even denied recognizing her. And how come she would be able to give or return all those if asked or requested? No way. That's pretty clear. But something more, beyond that. See,
Sir,
the house,
sir,
the things, the place. Yes, go ahead.
sir, all the things reminds her of her mother, all the olden days which were spent by her with her
Yes.
mother.
Yeah, something really noteworthy, something that can be remembered for life, something that's really pinching her heart, piercing through her mind, and was not able to make her peaceful. She became absolutely restless because of the too much of memories, too much of attachment or bond that she had with all those things, house, place, shops, streets, all that. So she could not actually stay back any longer. Her mind was overpowered with these kind of feelings. The address was correct, but the narrator didn't want to remember it anymore. She felt that the objects, whether they are silver cutlery or the street shops, anything. They were all linked to a memory. They were all linked to a memory of a time which no longer existed because it's gone. That's a past. And they had lost all their value in strange surroundings, in pathetic surroundings, ill treatments. So she did not want to remember anything. That address was right, but the narrator did not want to remember it anymore. She did not want to remember the address. And she started comforting herself by thinking that her present house was too small to accommodate all that old stuff. Thinking like that, she left the place, the house, the address, leaving all her family's belongings behind with Mrs. Durling herself. The values highlighted here. Number one, you please just understand that the chapter mainly highlights the agonies of war. The separations happened. The deaths happened. So the pain of separation with one's dear ones, like the separation of her mother, left her in a great deal of pain, was highlighted here. And the circumstances that led the people to feel all this, highlighted here. These are all known as the consequences of wars. Many people lose their near and dear ones, like we have seen during this corona period, losing many of the dear and near ones. I hope you agree with me.
Yes, sir.
So,
Yes, sir.
Through this, the narrator has suggested that wars should be avoided at any point because they all bring miseries, separations, losses, and whatnot, all the negativity. So, indirectly, she wanted to stress the point that wars must be avoided because they all bring miseries only. They all bring losses, separations. So, please understand that one. This is one thing highlighted here. And the second thing is unethical behavior. Who is the example in this story for exhibiting unethical behavior? Unethical behavior or immoral behavior?
Mrs. Dudley?
Of course, Mrs. Durling. See, the unethical behavior of Mrs. Durling, who took the advantage of Mrs. S.'s simplicity and innocence, that was highlighted. See, Mrs. Durling is a double-faced woman. She was a cleverly cunning woman. She tried to project herself as the savior of Mrs. S.'s precious possessions by just stating to them that she was carrying with a great deal of effort to save all of them. If at all something bad happens, she would be able to preserve all those things. So she tried to project herself as the savior, someone who saved of Mrs. S.'s precious possessions. Not in terms of costly, monetary aspects, but in terms of everything. But this cunning lady has been identified as a double-faced woman and exhibiting unethical behavior, immoral behavior. See here, dignity and respect is also highlighted. She did not intend to return those precious items. More unethical behavior is shown when Mrs. S.'s daughter visits Mrs. Durling. She was not even ready to recognize her. And she did not allow her to enter the house. She could manage to enter the house when she was not there in the second visit. Otherwise, in the second visit also, she could have excused herself with some or other thing. So this chapter shows that human dignity and self-respect for a person's human rights need to be practiced. And we should avoid unethical behavior and we should stop being double-faced. And finally, most importantly, war, the war harms everyone. It brings miseries, losses, and separations, and nothing else. I hope the chapter is clear.
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay, please wait for the detailed explanation to be floated, to be shared with you through class WhatsApp group, guys. I hope everybody must have left their names in the chat box. Have you guys left the names in the chat box?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
So please just leave your names in the chat box if you have not yet done. And I will just save the chart to mark your attendance as well. Okay. Now, once you have left your name in the chat box along with the section name, please start leaving the session. You don't have to be here. Thank you so much. Have a good day. Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Make sure that you should leave the name in the chat box, please. Everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Thank you,
Thank you,
sir.
everyone.
Bye, sir.
Thank you and bye. Thank you. Please leave the session, everybody. You don't have to be in the class. Please leave it. Make sure that you should leave your name in the chat box.